Let's start off with the headline, shall we? I'm 52 years old. I live in a really nice house in Los Angeles. My name is Carrie Fisher. I have two dogs, and I have a beautiful daughter named Billy. I have to start by telling you that my entire existence could be summed up with, if my life were not funny, then it would just be true. And that is simply unacceptable. What that means, other than what it sounds like, is that sometimes things happen in life. And from a certain slant, it may seem tragic or shocking, even. However, over time, the funny slant comes in, therefore making the same thing that harmed you do so no longer. An example of the tragic yet shocking may be, a few years ago, a good friend of mine died in my home. However, not content enough to die in my house, he had to go and die in my bed too. So he didn't just die in his sleep, he died in mine as well. In Alison M. Landoni's A Laughing Matter, Transforming Trauma Therapeutically Through the Use of Humor and Expressive Arts Therapy, it is confirmed that humor can be used as a communication technique within the therapeutic realm, as well as by using humor therapeutically can help create coping mechanisms, as well as offset life's many stressors, and help teach the importance of self-examination and self-worth. In her fifth published work, author, actress, and comedian Carrie Fisher describes the hardships in her life, going from her experiences in electric shock therapy all the way to her best friend dying in the same bed as her. Even though Fisher orders the audience to not pity her or her experiences, it can be difficult to not deem her life as a problematic one. However, she offers a different perspective, a good life, with a few problems thrown along the way, and dealing with these hiccups with life's best medicine. Laughter. Wishful Drinking by Carrie Fisher. Greg was one of my best friends, meaning he wasn't dating me or anything, so he didn't die in the saddle, making me the saddle. Now, Greg was gay, which might turn out to be something of a reoccurrence here. Now, if you like to entertain, as do I would recommend your guests not do this for two reasons. A, they end up dead, and I don't care how religious you are, that can't be much of a blast for anybody. And B, it tends to throw the hostess off of her game for about a year or three. But enough about death. I just wanted to get this bummer story out of the way because the rest of mine are all fun and smiles and skipping. Fine, have it your way. I'm a drug addict. Now, I'm not asking that you view my life as something of a predicament. I'm simply describing the dynamics that were at work during my formative years. One of my dozens of psychiatrists once told me that it's important to distinguish the difference between a problem and an inconvenience. But I don't care what the dictionary says. A problem derails your life, and an inconvenience is not having a nice seat on the underailed train. Given that, I've had 3 problems in my life. Dead guy in my bed, substance abuse, and manic depression. But my final little problem that stems from the trouble I seem to have with romantic relationships. Specifically, the last categorically serious relationship I had with my ex-husband, Brian. I was loved by a man, for a man. Billy's father left me for a man named Scott, making Scott the man who got the man who got away. Anyways, having nothing to do with Brian, about a year later I was invited to go into a mental institution. And you don't want to be rude, so you go. how many of you have been invited to a mental hospital? Ultimately, though, I feel very sane and how crazy I am. My diagnosis was manic depression, otherwise known as bipolar disorder. So you could say that I swing both ways. You would have to say that very loudly, though, otherwise I couldn't hear you. But because I am a good hostess, besides the Greg thing, I like to provide my guests with bibs. Because in the off chance that I do explode, as I periodically do, I don't want to get my crazy juices all over their nice clothing. But we've known each other for a little while now. I think that it's finally time I talk about my experience with electric shock therapy. When I think about ECT, it helps me to remind myself that we are not alone, that there are people also like me, and they are also fucked up. And I mean, look how much these fellow fuck-ups have managed to accomplish. Good for them. But I've been feeling pretty overwhelmed and pretty defeated. So that is one of the reasons that I decided to undergo electric shock therapy. It had been recommended by dozens of my psychiatrists over the years, but I always deemed it as too barbaric. Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was not the most enticing example. Another reason was that I was depressed. Profoundly depressed. And a part of that could be attributed to my mood disorder, which was, no doubt, probably the source of my emotional intensity. It's what takes sadness and turns it into sadness squared. It's what revs the motor of misery, guns the engine of an unpleasant experience, filling it with rocket fuel and blasting off into a place in the stratosphere that is, something like a suicidal tendency, where the wish to continue living is all but completely absent. I didn't necessarily feel like dying, but I wasn't feeling a whole lot like living either. So I think to myself, after this, after the gay husband and the rehabs and the nightclubs, if what doesn't kill you makes you, if what doesn't kill you makes you not dead, but if what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, then I should let the Cedars-Sinai Hospital on my shoulders and glow in the dark. So I think to myself, Carrie, bring it on! Don't ever say that. Do not ever say bring it on, because guess what? Spoiler alert, it will be brought. And that, my friends, is when Greg died. But ECT has forced me to reevaluate some of what makes Carrie Fisher. And I find that a hell of a lot of it fills me with a sort of giddy gratitude. Some of my memories will never return. They are lost along with the fleeting sense of hopelessness and despair. Not a tremendous price to pay if you think about it. Totally worth it! But one of my friends told me over the years that the only way to reach heaven is by backing out of the pits of hell. And while this place that I have come to in life may not seem like everybody's heaven, sometimes, if I'm quiet enough, I can hear the angels sing. That or I fucked up my medication, but who's to say?